話長い。いろいろ使いたいところがあるが、ワンセンテンスが9分くらいあるので、全部使うの何週間かかるんだろうって感じで、今日はね、アルバムレコーディング実はこれね、あるアプリを使ってやったんですよ。はい。それは全世界バラバラに住んでるじゃない、メンバーね。LA だなんやかんや。それがやっぱりね、今回のアプリは朝起きた時に誰かレコーディングしてるから、それを聞いてチェックしてってガーッと繰り返してたんで、結構ね、なかなかスリリングなアルバムになってる。そしてなんといってもキックに代表されるように1970年代初頭のオリジナルグラムロックへの、愛情がたっぷり注がれています。それではジョー・エリオットのインタビューご覧ください。
It was one continuous session. What you had was like this Zoom meeting that we're on now. You can see me, I can see you. We never saw each other for 2.25 years. We spoke on the phone, we spoke in email, and we communicated through BounceBoss. What we had in BounceBoss was similar to this, except it was words rather than pictures. And the words were all the song titles in little files. It looked like a filing cabinet. You clicked on one of the song titles, and the session came on. And you hit play, and you listened to what Ronan had done to it so far. And everybody had this, so they could import the session into their own home studios and add their parts to it by playing along to like almost an MP3. We had stems, so you could break down drums, bass, and guitars. But everybody has their own home studios anyway. So they were constantly working on it, but at the same time, not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, Phil might wake up in Laguna on a Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. The first thing he would do was drive down to the ocean and go for a swim. He'd come back, grab a coffee at Starbucks, get home, open up what had been happening in Europe the day before, because he was sleeping when it was delivered, listen to it and go, type a message, wow, this is amazing, I'm going to do my guitars now. So he's doing his guitars while me, Ronan and Sav are asleep. Vivian is possibly working on a different song, so any one of us could have been working on any song at any time, irrelevant of what the other guys were doing. And it all just gets sent when you hit send to Ronan. He's the guy, he was the central collection agency for the entire record. So he'd be the one going, okay, Phil's guitars have just come in for, say, Fire It Up. And he would maybe do 5 takes of the guitar. And Ronan would piece through, he'd listen to them all and take the best bits and compile the performance and put it into like I said, we started on day one. Literally, once we listened to all the songs, Ronan started building stems, which what a stem is a breakdown of each individual instrument, so that everybody gets like a kind of like a 4-track recording: drums, bass, guitars, vocals, and they'd all be demo versions of the instrumentation. Like on the songs I wrote, I played guitar and bass, programmed a drum, played the piano, sang on it. And what they would do is they would listen to it, learn the parts, play my parts. On songs that Phil wrote, I would learn his melodies and lyrics and I would sing them. So he was doing my songs, I was doing his songs, Sav was doing my songs, I was doing Sav's songs. So we were all trading that way. And we were just dipped in and out of it. You know, by the time Ronan got all the stuff up and running, even though we started on the Monday, I don't think any of us would have performed a part for the album until probably maybe Thursday or Friday that week. So it's a very relaxed session. But by the end of that week, we had a basis of 7 songs up. And what we would do is we'd take the demos. If everybody was happy with the demos, we would accept that, okay, that's done. And then everybody would just replace the parts, play over the top of the demo and replace the inferior guitar playing of me for their own. You know, I mean, some of my stuff apparently got left on, but it wasn't that bad. But, you know, a lot of Phil's vocals, backing vocals, we left them on because they were good. So Sav and Vivian just added to them. And that's how we did it. It was really relaxed. And it probably took 6 or 7 months, but in that kind of environment, it was only 10 or 12 hours a week, which gave us all the opportunity to enjoy some home time because we've been touring since 2015 and we hadn't stopped. So it was nice to be able to get more than just the winter at home, because normally we're always on the road in summer. And then if we're in Japan or Australia, New Zealand, we're down there, so we're not at home again. So it was nice, as much as it was weird because this pandemic was killing people, it was hurting people, it was destroying livelihoods and jobs. All we could do was take a positive out of this big negative and do our bit. And our bit was to stay safe, stay isolated. Once a week, we'd all put on the hazmat suits and go and do the weekly shop, you know. But most of the time, we stayed in a house. If the weather was nice, we stayed in the garden, played with the kids, took the dog for a walk, whatever people do, human beings do, you know. And then your phone would beep and it'd be like, ding, oh, bounce boss, message from Phil. So you run back to the house and turn it on and listen to the new version of whichever of the 14 songs that we initially had for this album. And that's how it was, you know. For about 8 weeks, we had the album finished towards the end of 2020, maybe a few mixes to do. And then Phil phoned me one day and he said, I've got this other song. I'm like, oh really? He says, I've written this song with my mate Dave Bassett. He says, you want to hear it? I said, sure. So he sent me the MP3 and it turned out to be the song Kick. And I said to Phil, I said, holy crap, Phil, we've got to do this. This is fantastic, you know. Send it to everybody else. So he put it up in Bounce Boss. And Sav was the first one to respond. And he said, wow, Sugar, anybody? And what he meant was, he wasn't comparing the song Kick to Pour Some Sugar on Me as a song. He was comparing the circumstances. The circumstances were that when we were finishing Hysteria, out of nowhere, we came up with a 12th song, which we didn't really want or need, we didn't think. But we came up with it anyway, and it was Pour Some Sugar on Me, and it turned out to be one of the most important songs on that album, if not our entire career. So that was what he was alluding to, and so consequently we all went, yes, we've got to do this. So again, Phil sent the song to Ronan, he stripped it down into sections, and I replaced Phil's guide vocal. We left all the backing vocals that him and Dave Bassett had done on. Phil did all the guitars, Vivian did all the guitars, Sam did the bass, and it's a bit sloppy here and there, but we really liked that. It had this kind of Aerosmithy, New York Dolls, almost punk attitude vibe to it, and it just sounded like the perfect first song to release. We haven't released any new music in 6 years, 7 years nearly, and it was an instant song. It's a stadium anthem, it's an arena anthem, it's one of those classic songs that reverts right back to our childhood. It's a total 70s kind of tip of the hat, if you like. You know, it's a 4-minute hero worship moment of all the bands that got us into music, like T-Rex, Bowie, Slade, Motley Crue, Queen, all those great bands from the 70s that really made us who we are today. So the 14-song album that we'd sat on for 2 months then became a 15-song record, and if it hadn't have been for the fact that vinyl takes 8 months now because of the pandemic to press the vinyl, we had to deliver the record. So the 16th song that me, Phil and Dave Bassett were writing was Saving It for a Rainy Day. So we were in a really good place when we were working on this record.